Reading is a skill. It takes a lot of effort to get good at it. Do not read, just I command you to read more. Today, we're going to be talking about how to read more books in 2025, and we're going to be doing it in a little bit of an unconventional way. Now, conventional wisdom might say, oh, pick out books that you find interesting, pick out books that, you've always wanted to learn about a topic on, pick out a book that speaks to you. But no, I have some really hidden tech that I don't think anybody else knows when it comes to reading books, because this is the stuff that's been passed down from my grandfather to my teachers to me, right? I have the secrets, and you're here to watch and learn them. Books are one of the greatest inventions known to man. The idea that you can bring ideas from the past all the way to the present without having to have somebody need to remember and actually hold and retain all the information is insane. Think about the technological marvel that is, that you don't have to have an entire ancestry of people to pass down information through stories or through some sort of other form of writing and get that to us and get that to us currently. Our entire society is founded off of books. It was founded off of the ideas from our ancestors being passed down to us. Pretty amazing, pretty cool, right? But we have the internet now. So it's why do we need to read books if we can just look everything up, bro, right? I think that is a lame excuse, and that was an excuse that I made a lot in middle school. I used to not like reading, mainly because the books that I was given and the books that I was forced to read in high school and middle school were pretty trash. I remember having to read Jane Eyre, and although, okay, listen, that book, people may like it, whatever, but I thought it was terrible, and I thought it was a waste of time, right? So as an adult, what I'm trying to do is not waste your time with books and to make reading the most enjoyable thing possible. Do you like Game of Thrones? Do you like Marvel movies? Do you like, any sort of piece of media or content that anybody else likes? Well, these pieces of content, these books, these movies all come from books. The ideas, the way that they tell stories, all of these things and happenings that go on in movies originally came from books, because guess what a movie starts off with? It starts off with a script, guys. And scripts are books, essentially. So if you like movies, if you like consuming content, if you like consuming media, you like your animes, you should also kind of consider reading a book, because I think that books give a way better perspective into the experience of consuming content, right? You can watch a movie in the background. You can listen to a podcast in the background. You can watch this video in the background, which I know some of you might be doing. But you can't read a book in the background. A book is something that you have to sit there and actually absorb every single piece of knowledge that's going on that page, because if you don't, you're not going to understand what's going on, and then you're going to have to go back and reread certain portions of it, which I know all of us have done before, right? Reading is a skill. It takes a lot of effort to get good at it. It is not like watching movies or seeing flashing colors on a screen. It is different because you have to understand the contextualization, the usage of literary, it's almost like an engineering marvel. There's actual lot of hard work put into some of these amazing and classic books that you wouldn't even understand or expect if you had not gone back and read the thing over and over again or experienced the thing in a certain way, right? So books are amazing. That's why I think you should read them. How do you, in 2025, with all the distractions of Twitch, of YouTube, of TikTok, all of these things being put onto your shoulders, how do you actually find the time to sit down and read a book? That leads me to step one. Do not read, just listen. There are these two little funny guys on the internet called Meat Canyon and Wendigo, and them together have created a beautiful sandwich of content that I like to call Creepcast, or they like to call Creepcast. Creepcast is awesome. It's a podcast about creepypastas, and they essentially just get on their mics or whatever, a podcasting mic, and they just talk about creepypastas. They read them out. They put fun little twists on them. They do funny voices. The way that they tell the stories, the way that they go back into the history of creepypastas and just lay everything out in a funny way is awesome, right? You're technically not reading there. What you are doing is listening to somebody else read, and that is one of the vehicles that's gonna make you maybe a little bit more interested in reading. You have to start really slowly when it comes to starting a new hobby or getting into something, right? You can't go scale a mountain with no harness and no hooks or anything like that and be like Alex Honnold if you want to start rock climbing. You gotta go to a gym. Maybe you do a V0, a V1, and you just learn from there, right? So my first step for learning to read more books in 2025 is to listen to more content about reading. Listen to more content about stories, right? I think about creepypastas as a great example. Creepypastas are essentially stories about video games. If you are listening and you are reading stories about things that you actually enjoy, you can sometimes just like eventually find yourself not only listening to that podcast, but maybe listen to an audiobook. And then with that audiobook, although it's not the same thing as a book, being a passive listener to an audiobook is a real thing. And like, it's, to me, it's technically reading, but it's also really not. Like, excuse me. Oh, like Audible is like grabbing my heart and squeezing it. Do you see that? Read books, man. They're freaking awesome. And in order to do so, you gotta listen to podcasts and listen to content about reading, about books, about things that you're actually interested in. The second thing that I like to do is, okay, so you listen to podcasts, you listen to all these things, and you're actually like, you know, getting a little steam under your belt. You're listening to audiobooks. Maybe you like watch a longer YouTube video or two, and you're like, you know what? I spend all this time listening and watching these videos. Why don't I just actually pick up a book and start reading it, for God's sakes? That is where I believe most people start when they start getting back into reading, because that's how I got back into reading. I think that listening to a bunch of productivity YouTubers like Ali Abdaal, Ruri Ahama, Matt Diavella, he and a bunch of other people and stuff like that, they always recommend books in their channel, right? And essentially all of their content and all the basic content that goes into a lot of these YouTubers is recycled information from books. So like I said in the beginning, movies, stuff like that, usually comes from books, right? So I found books off a list that Ali Abdaal had or Ruri Ahama had in one of their videos, and I was just going through them and seeing what books I liked and like what books actually interested me the most. I picked out a bunch and I read a bunch. Oh. So it all started out with me reading The 4-Hour Workweek, which is I gave to my mom. But as you can notice, these books are all mine. They're all purchased. I purchased all these books, which is super important to me. I believe that owning and being able to write and mess around with a book is one of the most fun experiences that you can have, because portability and ease of access to content sometimes isn't a good thing, right? Think about this, right? Why are we so addicted to shorts? Why am I so addicted to shorts? It's because it's so easy to just get the content that you want and just scroll through and just like go through and just continuously read, right? I think about that with if you're using Kindle, if you're using some sort of ebook reader, having a library of books on a little screen, right, where you can have access to all your books and read whatever. It's great. It's great if you are good at that, but I need the physical copy because I need that experience of like holding something in my hand and knowing that it exists in the physical space. And I think that like this is something that I think Napoleon Hill talks about in his book again, How to Grow and Think Rich. It's like you kind of have to have things manifested in real space in order for you to understand them. When I think about the words on a page, like I don't want to think about the digitalness of it like going away. Like I couldn't tell you the last YouTube short I watched, but I can tell you that this page has like ink on it and it's like printed in there. It's physical, it's in there. And these notes that I made, right? So it's like this book is about, learning to like get better at your job or gain more skills. Like I wrote here, the difference in strategy that separates average guitar players from me is not confined to music, right? Like that I have that in here, right? Of course I can go back in my audiobooks or my Kindle or whatever and have bookmarks like that, but this exists here. This is going to be here always. My kids are going to see this. Whoever is going to pick up my belongings after the end of my days, they're going to see these. They're going to be like, what did this person write in here? And what did that person think at the time? And also when you go back and you actually start reading the book again, maybe say 2 years from now or a year from now, right? Which I think is actually a very useful thing to do because you change as a person a lot when you do read books at different parts in your life. You'll see what you were thinking about at the time. So here's a great story just about that. Wendigoon, the YouTuber I was talking about before, he had a teacher that was teaching The Road by Cormac McCarthy. And the first line of that book was something about the child character or the son having his words be the word of God. So precious, right? Because the dad loved the son so much. And the teacher who had read the book before he had his son, probably didn't have that much of an emotional reaction to that book. But when Wendigoon was in the class, the teacher read out that line and he started crying. And so do you see how important it is to leave landmarks and have actual places where you can remember and think about things inside of a physical spaces? In order to enjoy books, in order to enjoy content and media, you have to make it into your own. You have to make it so that it's a personalized experience because there is just so much content out there. I mean, like, there's millions and billions of songs, of movies, of TV shows just made, and none of it, like, is ever going to touch or, like, even get close to you, right? So the stuff that is close to you, the stuff that you do enjoy, you have to leave a mark on. You have to be somebody who says, this is mine, and, like, anybody who, like, sees this can see that this is mine, and that, like, I had an experience with this, and I, like, wrote and have my mementos in here, because I feel like that makes it so much more fun. I see a book over there that's, like, completely blank. I'm like, maybe I didn't actually pay attention to it enough, or maybe I need to go back into it. But if I see I have a book with a lot of insight and a lot of stuff written in it, I'm like, I got a lot out of this. Here's where a good piece of information is. Here is where I should think about again, and maybe, like, even show this to somebody else, right? If you want to read more books, make it an experience that's your own. The third thing, and this is, like, the most general one, is to actually buy books that you want to read. Like, I've seen so many people with libraries of books that they haven't even touched. They just grow dust and, like, nothing happens with them. You know, I'm not innocent. I have Vermis Part 2 sitting there waiting to be read, and I got some book about failure that I'm supposed to read too that I never got around to. It's okay to, you know, pick up the 1 or 2 books here, but if you're buying books, if you're purchasing things with the intent of just being like, okay, I'm going to get this because I want to feel like I'm somebody that reads books, you're thinking about it wrong, right? Imagine, like, renting a movie on Prime Video or renting a movie, you know, on Redbox, if people still use that. And it's like, I'm feeling good because, like, I purchased this thing, or, like, I am somebody who purchases movies, right? Like, that's a little bit wild to me. You want to embody the purchases and, like, the things that you make, because if you think about it, like, the things that we buy, the things that we own, those are, like, a part of us. So, like, if we're surrounding ourselves with things that we haven't accomplished, things that we haven't read, things that we actually don't like or won't spend the time to read, right? It's like, what are we doing it for? Are we doing it in service of other people? Are we doing it so that when somebody comes to our house and sees all the books we have, they're going to say, oh, wow, this guy must read. He's so smart. Guys, reading is it's not the hobby and skill of a sophisticated savant. It's a very normal thing. It's a thing that a lot of people do. Reading is so important, and it should be more normalized. Like, we missed out on so much more reading that we should have done in high school. And again, I said, like, oh man, I was complaining about Jane Eyre earlier, but I read so many great books in high school. I read To Kill a Mockingbird. I read The Road. I read Harlan Ellison's I Have No Mouth in My Scream. Those books, those experiences, those stories really changed me, and they like give me, like, really good frameworks to live by in life, because I think, like, again, books are there to bring knowledge from past generations into our generations. We learn lessons through stories, because the people that didn't listen to the stories, the people that didn't learn from their ancestors, they probably died from, you know, not following the evolution path, right? When somebody was like, okay, I remember the story of not having to touch that snake or not eating that poisonous berry or something like that because the berries are bad or whatever, like, those people survived. The people who didn't listen, the people who didn't use communication or didn't follow the stories or whatever, they perished probably. And so, like, that's culture, that's, like, history, that's understanding literature. And that's why when you purchase books, you need to be, like, serious about it. Because there are serious consequences of, like, reading books. Like, literature has changed society. It's the most powerful thing. Like, if you think about the guy who put the nails, the 12 commandments on the door of the church, like, those moments in history, like the writing of the Constitution. History is literally created through literature. It's created through books. It's created through these experiences. It's history being written into a place where it could be accessed forever. As long as these pages exist and as long as that ink is in that book, it is there. It is not going anywhere. And that's what makes books so amazing. And that's why you should consider reading more. And so everybody has resolutions for 2025. My resolutions were to read more books, to go to the gym, to experience life a little bit more with my family, spend more time hanging out with them. And I think that there's no excuse to not read, because reading will keep you happy, it'll keep you healthy, and I'm certain that there are stories out there that you want to read and that you want to hear from. Reading is not a waste of time, and reading will change your life. The stories and the things that are being told in these stories are so important. Like, guys, I'm reading Crime and Punishment for the first time. This book is insane. Literally insane. I lost my place in it. Shit. Just, like, understanding this book now, right? Crime and Punishment, here. It's insane. This is a part of a dream sequence that a character has, right? I don't know if you can see it right there, right? But the state of the world at this time period, I understand, like, you think, okay, yeah, people are starving. It must have been terrible. But you read and you hear the things that go on and just the history that humanity has been through. And it's mind-boggling. And the fact that I am here now speaking into a black box that goes into another black box that provides information to the entire world that hopefully somebody will get some sort of value out of and won't be completely absorbed by and will actually gain a lesson from and improve their life with is crazy. Because knowledge used to be something that was impossible to get. You would farm, you would maybe, work in a trade or something like that, but education and being able to preserve education was something that was impossible without books, without literature, without being able to read more books. So I am emboldening you. I am giving you unconventional ways, but think about it. Reading is awesome, and I command you to read more. No, I'm joking. I really recommend it. It's great. It's going to be so much fun. Find a book that you enjoy. Pick one that has a cool cover, and give it a shot. Reading is so much fun. I love it. And yeah, this is Matt from the Live Company. I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching. Peace.